bring some pals, and there's also therapy too.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Park Pals once more. Thank you so much for your patience. I know we weren't here last week, so thank you for that. And excited to be back. I'm not sure quite if Maddie will make it to this one. She is running from something else, so we're just going to go ahead and get started. And if she can join, that's awesome. And if not, we will see her next time. So this one is Correspondents Lunch, Season 5, Episode 15. Things to add / things that I missed last week, or last episode, rather. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to say it anyway. We had talked about we weren't sure if Ben and Leslie were in front of April and Andy's house or whose house they were in front of when she goes to help him with the rings. But it does look like Leslie and Ben were, in fact, in front of Andy and April's house. And he said, when he says there are no rings, because he found the box he was talking about, and there's a tennis bracelet and something that says wine chick, and he's holding the box, and that's when they kind of back into each other, and you know, she gets discouraged about things not working out, and then she sees the little Sebastian lookalike. I don't know why he was there, or because we kind of thought that he might be closer to oh my gosh, Anne's house, because it would be next to the pit or next to the park or the gala. But I do think they were at Andy and April's house. So at least that's what it looks like to me. So anyway, all right. So getting back into Correspondents Lunch, or starting Correspondents Lunch. This was written by Alexandra Rushfield, who is a producer and writer, and she actually works on the Rob Lowe show called Unstable, which I believe is on Netflix, and we've talked about a little bit with that crossover. She's also worked on the TV show Love. This is her second writing credit for Parks, and she previously wrote Pawnee Commons earlier this season, which is great. We love that episode very much. And then this was directed by a guy called Nick Offerman. We love. This is his first directing credit with Parks, and he'll later direct Flu Season 2 in Season 6. And according to his IMDb, this is the only time he's directed. I don't see where he directed anything else, but obviously he knew how to, you know, be in the show and move with the show and lead the people of the show, and it's really wonderful. And of course, he does a lot of writing in addition to his acting and directing work, so we know that that is still like a skill set that I feel he would have. But anyway, so very fun, great team here. And yes, so now I will go ahead and play the summary for Correspondents Lunch.
Hi, Park Pals. I am here to give a summary for Correspondents Lunch. So I'll start with that and then give you my thoughts. Leslie and the Parks gang attend the Correspondents' Lunch in Pawnee, but Leslie quickly learns that all of her jokes have already been stolen. Ben starts his new job, April tries to cheer up Andy, and Anne is super weird with Chris. So, this is like a super cringe episode for me. Not in the like Scott's Tots dinner party, those Office episodes way, but kind of just there are little moments where I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel like this character, or it doesn't feel right, or I don't know, it just makes me kind of squirmy. So the biggest part of that being Anne and Chris. I understand that what Anne is trying to ask Chris is extremely personal and very uncomfortable. Like, I would be uncomfortable asking someone that. I would be uncomfortable asking someone I've known for years that, especially since she and Chris haven't been close for they haven't been as close recently. So it's not like she's asking him in the heat of, them being super close. It's like they've kind of grown apart. She's put that boundary up for herself, and now she's like, well, I'm going to jump back in. So I get where she's coming from. Part of the cringe for me, and something that I don't like, is when Ron makes her ask Chris this question. She has divulged this information to Ron, which I think is huge, and he's just not very sensitive about it. I do think she needs to get there, right? She does need to do it, but I think, I don't know, and this may be just the Anne in me, but I feel like she needed to get there in her own time, and she needed to ask in her own way. And knowing Anne, I think she would have eventually just come out and said it, but it should have been in a very intimate environment. Like, this is at the Correspondents' Lunch. Like, Shauna Malloy-Tweep is there. Pert is literally standing there. So awkward. And I was going to say Chris, but it's Ron is standing there too. And it just felt weird to me. And I think if she was able to ask organically and genuinely, I don't know if she'd be running away from him in the hallway. I think she would feel a little bit more secure in it, but I think she was forced too quickly. So that's my opinion on that. Very intrigued to hear what you have to say, Holly. That's that. Love that Ben brings Andy into this. At first, he doesn't take his idea, and we get to see that wonderful side of April when she really puts her husband before herself, because she doesn't put a lot of people before herself, and this is just one of those wonderful moments. And we see Ben kind of like shake off his idea for a second, but he realizes that he can help Andy. And so he does this wonderful thing that of just kind of bringing him in and being like, hey, you can help me help people. And it's going to be this beautiful thing. So I love that relationship starting to blossom. And that was, and then just the quirkiness of Leslie not having jokes or anything is the other cringe part for me. There was nothing cringy with Ben and April, except for Tom. Tom makes me cringy. That's who it is in that story. Yeah, just because he wants all this food and stuff. He's not even helping them pick a charity. He just picks some random pamphlet and throws it on the table and is like, that one. And it's just yicky. We've got Sleazy Tom again. He's literally there for the free food and the robe and the slippers and all the things. So those are my things. Love everyone. Love this episode. So sad I wasn't there, but appreciative that I get to still be part of it through these summaries. Hopefully I will see you guys on the next recording.
Okay, awesome. Well done. Great work. Okay, so we start this episode with Ben and Leslie back from their honeymoon in Hawaii. Leslie says she saw the bus stop where a young Barack Obama waited for the bus, theoretically, and the Honolulu City Hall, which is super fun and cute for Leslie. We love that for her, and I would love to do that too, actually. April's totally messing with her, acting like she's excited with Leslie, and it reminds me of later in the season when she meets Tinnifer or whatever, like, oh my God, no way. Oh my God, bummer. And I just thought that was funny. And they brought presents. So for Chris, they brought an acai tree, which is a superfood, and according to Chris, a super present. Donna, because she likes her coffee like her men, dark, rich, and full-bodied. And then for Anne, they got a fertility tea that they will definitely be throwing away because as she tells the story, she realizes that it is probably either a drug or poisonous or it just isn't safe because it was like in the back of his truck or something or car or whatever. And then it's really funny because April and Andy give a look after they throw it away like, okay, yeah, we'll get it. So which does lead me to believe that it is drugs. So it's probably some sort of weed. You know what I'm saying? So April and Andy will enjoy that later, I'm sure. And then they got the Hawaiian God of Anger for Ron. It looks so good. It looks so much like Ron, and Ron loved it. And he holds it up to his face, and it's so lovely. I love it so much. And it's wooden, which is perfect for Ron. He could have even made that. Jerry got earbuds and basically all the things from the airport, which I love that he says that they've gotten him that before because clearly they didn't really think about Jerry. They just kind of got what was there at the airport. Tom got an autographed portrait of Scott Coe from Hawaii Five-0. I've never watched that show, but I know that they did. I feel like they did a reboot, I want to say. And it does shoot in Hawaii, so that's great. Good job. Great work. I'd love to be cast in that because then I could go to Hawaii on their dime. But we'll see. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, what a dream. What a dream. April got them to throw her box in the volcano. Very suspicious, and no explanation was given. So we'll just call that a day for that. Although it does seem very, characteristic of April to request that. So that's fine. And then Andy requested a 3-pack of white t-shirts from Target. LOL. Thank you, Hawaii. All right. So now we're in the conference room where Leslie is practicing her speech for the Pawnee Correspondents lunch, and she's really crushing her speech. She's basically roasting everyone, and especially the Pawnee son. She's really roasting them, and she's so confident. I love it so much. She's so into her jokes, and honestly, they're really good, and I think the team likes them too, so I think it's wonderful. And then we learn that this is basically the Pawnee's version of the White House Correspondents' Lunch where, the media and the government roast each other and just have a good time. But instead of it being at the White House and being super mega fancy and like, white tablecloth vibes, it's at the Pawnee, like 2-star hotel, which is very precious. So she says the Pawnee Sun always rakes her over the coals. They always make fun of her, and she's mad about it. And she gets like really angry, and then she stops herself and is like, it's all in good fun. But I know she wants to roast them. I know she wants to crush them, and she will. That's for sure. So Leslie's saying she needs more jokes, and that's kind of why she brought them in there, not only to, review her jokes, but to ask for more jokes. And Ron makes a joke about the government that isn't actually a joke. He's just basically stating his thoughts that he thinks are facts, saying like the joke is that the government spends your tax money wisely and efficiently. And he laughs. He thinks it's very funny. And then we get to, okay, so we talked about this in the last episode, this awkwardness that Anne kind of has with Chris because of the whole sperm donor thing. And, but we haven't really talked about, this is the episode where she's actually going to ask Chris to be the sperm donor. Because last episode, it was like he's very paternal. She could see him being a good father because he had that whole moment with Chris Pratt, with Andy when he failed the police exam, and Chris was very, supportive and fatherly almost, but mostly just supportive as a friend would be too. But anyway, so Anne runs into Chris in the hallway, and she's being super weird and runs away from him. He obviously takes this as like, yo, great idea. I'll run to my next meeting too. Because, she's running away from him because she wants to ask Chris to be a sperm donor, and she doesn't know how to yet. And when she runs away from Chris, she accidentally, well, maybe she knew that it was Ron's office, but she, goes into Ron's office. She's hiding there, and she asks for his advice on how to talk to Chris, but she says it's for a favor that she wants somebody to do, and she doesn't know how to be direct and firm and basically kind of blunt, really, to just say what she's thinking. And I actually love this part as much as I don't love the awkwardness and like the weirdness that they have given to Anne's character. I love the metaphor of planting ficuses in my front yard. Oh my gosh. And I just love that writing that there, and the analogy and Anne's line in her talking head of like grossest metaphor ever. So true it is, but it's so funny and so good. Which I think is hilarious too, because it is like, my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. Oh my God. Okay. Anyways, I do love this joke though, where Ron says you'd have more success if he planted ficuses in your backyard. I don't think so. All right, so now we're at Sweetums with Jessica Wicks because Ben has finally taken a job offer. We talked about this ages ago, it feels like. I feel like we haven't really touched base on where he landed with his job, because I feel like the last episode was when they were at Andy and April's house, and he was like about to take the accounting job, and Leslie was like, if you don't like it, find something that you do like, just take a beat, whatever, which was honestly like the most un-Leslie advice ever, but it worked for him. But anyways, so yeah, we finally learned that this is the job that he accepted. And, like I said, it's like we've been consumed with Leslie and Ben's wedding and the Pawnee Commons. So we haven't really talked about where he is professionally. So it's nice to kind of, circle back to that. His office is giant. We've got Nick Newport's naked wheelchair picture in the office, and Jessica Wicks' naked, just regular picture, like looking back at it. I do remember when I interviewed the guy who plays Nick Newport, and he sent me a selfie actually in front of that very picture when we first meet Nick Newport, and he's I think it's at the one where they're trying to tear down the gazebo, and Leslie is kind of interrupting the birthday party to get this gazebo to not be torn down, and Nick Newport is very not even really aware of what's going on. He's kind of just like staring blankly at Leslie. And I will say, side note, that he was not that old. They definitely made his hair gray, added some wrinkles and makeup. He was not that old at all at the time. So I don't know how old he is now. But anyway, he was great. And side note, that guy was also in a Justin Bieber music video, which is awesome. But anyway, I think it's worth noting, and maybe I'll find the picture and post it again, but I think it's worth noting that picture is a real picture that they made. which obviously it would be, but I just want you to know that it's real. And they kind of just had like a blurry / Ken doll moment for his privates that are blurred out in the actual picture. So incredible. I love that. What a great way to stay remembered and have that in the TV show. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't even in that many episodes and yet you're just enshrined here. And it is really hilarious too that Jessica Wicks is like turned on by this aging man, like bony aging man in a wheelchair. He was so decrepit. I do love that she's like smiling when she says that. All right, so we learned that he's running the charity portion of Sweetums, and Jessica wants Ben to pick a charity by this afternoon. And then we learned that the chocolate gets its flavor from the rats. Yikes. Oh dear. Because that's kind of the joke where most of the charity that Ben is doing, and we'll talk about this a little bit more directly later on when he eventually, spoiler alert, is no longer working there. He basically says, you know, most of the charity that they do is to cover for bad things that have happened. So this, like, the charity is just making up for the bad things that have happened, right? So he says that the rumor is that, you know, rats are used in the chocolate, and she's like, well, you know what they say about rumors? And he's nodding as if it's, you know, they're not true. And she's like, they're mostly true. And that the flavor comes from the rats. So that's fun. All right, so now we're actually at the Correspondents' lunch, and the Wood-Eye guy is back, Jim Meskimen, who we interviewed. Check that out. There were a lot of deleted scenes with him because he actually does impressions professionally. So I'm sure they let him maybe improvise or maybe just gave him some ideas that were scripted or something. But it was fun to see the deleted scenes that they let him kind of riff with. And I think later in the season or series, I can't remember which one maybe, but they really let him go, I think, in a couple of episodes, but they were mostly deleted scenes. So it's nice to see those because he does impressions, and he has a YouTube channel and all these things. So definitely check out the interview that we did with him. And if you're not familiar with me calling him the Wood-Eye guy, it's because I know I don't need to explain this to most of you, but the Wood-Eye is when Ron is winning the award for Best Chair, and Jim Meskimen, aka this guy, I think his name is Martin Housley as the character name, is always the MC, and he holds up a wooden eye, and the joke is, when they asked me to host this, I said, would I? And he holds up the wooden eye, and it's great. So I just call him that because that's his most memorable thing. Okay. And I love that they keep bringing him back. It's great. All right. So now we get to see/meet Kim Turlando from the Pawnee Sun. And Leslie, this is Leslie's nemesis. This is who has been kind of raking her over the coals, as she stated before. And Leslie pulls out a literal can of whoop ass to show her what she's about to open on her ass. And it's really funny that she actually made this for that moment. So Kim Turlando is played by Jamie Denbo, and she has been in a bajillion things. Awesome work. She has been in Sex Lives of College Girls, Station 19. She is also a writer and producer on Grey's Anatomy. She's been doing that for a couple seasons, and that is probably the thing that I think right now keeps her really busy. She also still does a ton of improv, and she came up with a lot of people in Amy Poehler's kind of class, if you will, as far as, you know, the year that Amy Poehler came up. She still does UCB shows. She knew so many of our guest stars in this episode from that. And since she knew so many people, fun fact, she said she actually didn't audition for this. She's one of, I think, the only guest star that I know of right now who did not audition for this role or for a role on Parks. And I think that's really interesting to learn because so many people, even if they are improvisers and they know people, still do audition and kind of just hope for the best. So it's really cool because Greg confirmed, Levine? Oh gosh. I'm so sorry. He was a script supervisor and writer, and he hosts the other podcast with Jim O'Hare, I guess the official one, if you will. But he said that they sometimes cast people from the list of UCB, especially if they think of someone specific. So that could be why, Jamie probably was on their short list of people, and then they just had this role that was so perfect for her, which, like, what a gift, what an honor. I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure she feels that way too. And she was kind of making a joke, and she was like, she thinks someone probably dropped out and that's why she got it. But she was really wonderful and funny. So like, of course they would have casted her, obviously, you know what I mean? I think. So yeah, that's a really cool fun fact about her, and that she still is out there doing UCB shows. So it's really cool. And Grey's Anatomy sounds intense, I feel, as a writer's room with all the medical jargon and things like that. But anyhow, all right. So that's Jamie Denbo, aka Kim Turlando. And so they're still talking. The whoop-ass can is out. And Kim Turlando says, nice to see you. And I love Leslie's, it's nice to see you too. Like mocking, really funny. Well, Anne says she wants to talk to Chris, but Chris says, okay, 1 second. Like, they're all about to eat their food. And Chris is like, okay, let's talk, but just a second, because he got the meat option. And Shauna Malloy-Tweep is there, and she got the veggie option. And it's a beautiful little meet cute, except for they've already met. But it would be a cute meet cute. And they switch plates, and it's like really discouraging. Anne's face / Rashida's acting there to kind of show her facial expression of like, oh God, this is not the way that I wanted this to go, because they switch plates and then it seems like they're flirting, and it's a whole thing because they used to date. You know what I mean? Awkward. So now Tom, April, and Andy are visiting Ben because Ben asked for help in picking a charity. He has this huge stack of charities that he has to pick from. And I mean, it's a huge stack. I don't even know if I'd call it a stack. It's like a pile buildup. And so he asks these guys to come in. Andy is super depressed and staring into the distance because he failed the police exam, which is really sad. And he just can't get past it yet. He's still processing it and still really sad about it and feeling terrible. April is being such a good friend, really, and wife, like that combination, trying to get excited about this for Andy so that Andy will get excited and try to find some purpose in life, because she says that she can confirm he's been really depressed since the police academy thing happened. And it's just like, it's really nice to see April be excited on someone else's behalf, if you will. Like, come on, babe, let's try this. It sounds fun. Let's help him. You know what I mean? So it's really nice because she would never, and it's genuine, you know what I mean? Like, I could see her doing that for Leslie fakely, as she did in the beginning of the episode, but not like this. And that's really special and beautiful to see that kind of connection as husband and wife and supporter. You know what I mean? She just wants him to be happy. And I love the whole, like, he's sad and sweaty when usually he's happy and sweaty. And I also love that, Andy is basically just saying all of the clinical depression, symptoms of like, I'm just tired all the time and I don't find passion in things that I usually find. And he said something about his appetite, I feel. I don't know. Side note, speaking of appetite, the fancy lunches they bring are all seafood that must cost like literally $800 bajillion, like literally king crab legs and shrimps that are massive. Those things are not cheap. Okay. All right, so back at the Correspondents' lunch, Kim Turlando is making her speech. Reminder, she is from the Pawnee Sun, who Leslie was going to roast / rake over the coals right back. And guess what? Kim Turlando is now saying the whole speech that Leslie had. She stole it. And it's really good writing because, the first line, Leslie's like, oh man, that was my first joke. Dang it. Like, we must have just had similar minds, which, Leslie, that's really optimistic of you. But that's total, like, from the first one, you're like, oh, she stole it. And Kim Turlando's like whole face, like, she knows it. She makes a whole face rubbing it in Leslie's face. You know what I mean? Like, she has a facial expression of like, yeah. What are you going to do, bitch? You know what I mean? Like, I'm up here. I'm already giving the speech. Oh, and then Leslie opens a can of whoop-ass on herself. No, she thinks that the can is a real can. She's about to drink out of it. Damn. Then we have Councilman Milton, rest in peace, who is making his speech, and all of his stuff is real. Like that he rode here in a horse and buggy at his first Correspondents' lunch. That's not a joke. I really did. Leslie asks if anyone lost their copy of the speech because she doesn't know how she got a copy, how Kim Turlando got a copy. And everybody has theirs. Everybody's presenting theirs and saying, like, mine's right here. And guess what? Jerry lost his copy. So it was him that we think. And To be honest, it seems like a very Jerry thing to do. So even Jerry is like, shit, I did it. You know what I mean? Ugh, sad. Go stand in the corner and no dessert. I also love the shot of him declining the dessert from the waiter, and that the fact that the waiter goes up to him anyway when he's standing in the corner very like weirdly, not normally. But I love that shot of him. It's like, you know, when a kid goes and stands in the corner, usually they're going to try to sneak something, but Jerry is just like, no, I don't deserve it. It's so sad, especially if you know the end of the episode. You know what I'm saying? Well, Leslie is now trying to get jokes from everyone, and Anne has terrible jokes. And I love this line. I think it's probably my favorite line. You're too beautiful to be funny. It's not your fault. You never had to compensate for anything. The rest of you ugly nerds need to give me some jokes, stat. I laughed out loud at that. I can relate. That's all I'll say. So Chris is staring at the camera, which makes sense when she says that, because he's kind of like confused because he doesn't really fall into that category of ugly nerd. So, you know what I'm saying? Anyway. All right, so now we are back at Sweetums, and Andy has an idea for a charity that he found, and Ben definitely shrugs it off. He's like, okay, yeah, just, you know, put it in the pile. And I'm like, Ben, why the fuck did you invite him then, or them, to come in if you weren't going to take their suggestion seriously? Like, you didn't even say, okay, yeah, I'm going to have like a meeting at the end, and I understand it's a show, whatever. But I'm like, yeah, we're going to like talk about it all together at the end and make sure that we're giving everybody their due diligence and everybody gets to present their charity or whatever. He just shrugs it off. And I'm like, bitch, you see how sad Andy is? Listen to him. Oh my God. Annoying. Sorry, Ben. But Ben is like, I don't know. Ben has been doing that to like a lot of characters, I feel, especially Ron. But now he's doing it to Andy. I'm kind of annoyed about that. But, you know, anyway, that's just a side note. You know, I love Ben. I love Ben. Okay. All right. So, yeah. And I just wrote a note that I'm kind of on April's side when she says, no, he found something. He's going to tell you about it right now. You know? So he does, which is Redwood Music Program, which is an after-school music program for kids, and it will keep them off the street, which is a really lovely idea. I think it's great. So back at the Correspondents lunch, Joan Calamezzo, a.k.a. our fave Mo Collins, is roasting Perd Hapley, which is hilarious. I love that all the guest stars are here. I love it so much that, because they're all in the news, and I didn't even think of that until I was like, it's between media and the government. You know what I'm saying? So it's really lovely. They're correspondents. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So Anne goes up to Ron and is like, oh my gosh, it's so gross. Chris and Shauna are flirting. They're like in public. You know what I mean? Like they shouldn't be doing that in public. And she's very, you know, vulnerable at this moment and taking it too seriously because Ron is like, that's called a conversation, you know? And then she finally tells the truth about her, quote, advice that she wanted to get from him. And this is where he's like, that's the only metaphor you could think of? Like, what? And then Ron immediately runs away because it's getting too personal. Okay, so Leslie is panicking still about not having a joke because her speech is going to come up and she's not going to have anything. And she's saying, maybe you should just do impressions. Like, or maybe I could just do impressions rather. And then Borat comes out. Like, what? No, that's not going to work. Side note, I do want to play something from the gag reel because in one of the DVD specials, deleted scenes, there's a gag reel about them all coming up with jokes, and they're kind of doing like an improv game to come up with a joke, and it's really funny, and I'll just go ahead and play it for you.
I used to have this thing in camp where you would say a word and then someone else would say a word and then eventually you would end up with a joke. So let's try that, okay? I'll start. Kim Turlando eats
so much
potato that
Ron.
Oh my God. She eats so much potato that Ron
Keep going.
thinks that
She's potato. Oh my God. America.
and I'm not funny. Mm-hmm. She eats so many potatoes that Ron thinks she's Potato America.
Hilarious.
So, okay, how do I say this? Basically, that was also a deleted scene, so I'm sure, and it went on for quite a bit. They did that a lot. They went around the circle and kind of said words. And so I think that was mostly like an improv moment where they're like, yeah, just actually do like an improv game, the camp game, you know what I mean? And like make it up and figure it out. I'm sure they had some of it scripted. But anyway, I just needed to show the laughter part of it though, because and they obviously deleted it. So I wanted you guys to see, because it really sounded like they were actually at camp trying to make this up. I feel like I just said the same thing 20 times. But anyway, that's them laughing, and I love to hear them laughing when they're filming. Okay. All right. So, now Leslie is asking, Joan is still up there roasting Perd, but she's finishing up, and Leslie had asked Joan to read something to introduce Leslie. Yikes. Strap on your adult diapers because you're about to wet yourself with laughter. I love that Joan's face at the end is like, fuck, why did I agree to that? Like, I should have read that before she gave it to me. You know what I mean? Or before I read it out loud, rather. And Leslie totally bombs. It sucks so bad. And Kim Turlando is like feeling that she won. You know what I mean? And I love that Leslie does the comedian thing of like, oh, well, you know, they're giving me the lights. So, sucks. All right. Well, now we're back at Sweetums with Ben and the team. And Tom is being an ass and blending a smoothie. And somehow he got a robe somewhere. And that's all he's really there for. He hasn't helped at all, which is awful. Ben says that he went ahead and picked a charity, and it wasn't Andy's. It's an ambulance that services rural areas so they'll get to the hospital faster, which is a big deal and a very honorable and great charity. It's just really sad to see Andy so upset, you know? And, oh my gosh, Pratt does a great job here. Andy's character crying, full of tears. Or no, he doesn't fully cry. Tears don't come in his eyes, but he is definitely about to cry. His eyes are watering. And it is so good because to see a character that is constantly joyful and happy, the golden retriever, to see him cry, it's so unfortunate. And it's so sad. You know what I mean? So I think he did a great job to bring that to light. And then April tells Ben, you know, what's going on with Andy, why does she need to say that? Ben, can't you just like get that, you weirdo? But April spells it out and, you know, finally is just like, look, he's been really depressed and now you didn't like help him in any way. And so now I have to go take care of him, you know? Which Ben makes up for it a little bit later. So it's great. Okay. So now we are back at the Correspondents' lunch. Anne finally goes up to Chris and is super nervous. She says his name like Christopher. And classic Chris laughs at it even though it's weird. Which I think that, oh God. I think Rashida Jones does a great job. But the writing of this, you guys, I love this show so much. But the awkwardness does not have to be this way. And I get it's for the funny kind of, sort of, but like Anne and Chris are so mature and have come so far in their maturity and like development and personality, not only as like their characters, but within themselves. I'm just like, Anne can have this conversation with Chris. Like, she might need to work up to it, of course, but the way that she just like blurts this out, I'm sorry if it's controversial. I'm just like, this didn't have to be this way. And it's so fast. And I understand a little bit on the back end of, if you know any of the behind the scenes, like why this happened, but I'm just like, yikes. So it all ends up okay, but I'm just like, it didn't have to be this awkward. It didn't have to be this weird. Okay, moving on. Anne makes up that she's taking a survey asking people what their spirit animal is because she can't think about anything else to say. And I love that Chris immediately answers Jaguar and Perd is around and says doggy. Oh my God. And then Ron overhears this and says, Anne, no more delaying. Do it now. Ron, why? In front of Perd? Come on. So she does. And I just don't like this. I don't like how this was handled. It shouldn't have been rushed. Ron shouldn't have interfered. She could have had a great conversation with him and explained that she's been wanting a baby. She shouldn't have run away afterwards. Like, I don't like it. And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Moving on. Okay, so Jerry comes back and says that he didn't actually lose the speech, so it wasn't his fault. It was actually in his shoe. It's a little moist or damp or whatever he says, but it's here. And they have no idea how she got the speech, but Leslie figures it out how she, meaning Kim Turlando, got the speech. But Leslie figures it out that the Pawnee Sun has hacked her email, and then she smashes her phone, which doesn't help. And it's also Jerry's phone. The police said they're going to launch an investigation, but it could take months, which is wild. Leslie says she has a press conference in 2 hours, so she needs to go through everything and all her emails to see what they might have on her. Andy comes into Ben's office back at Sweetums now, and Ben says, thank you for the help, and, sorry for not choosing the after-school program. Like, basically saying, I'm glad that you helped me and you did a great job, but we're just not going to go this way. And Andy is wildly astute and mature and wise and says he completely understands the reasoning behind Ben's choice, using words like, it's effective and it'll look good in the media. Like, what the fuck? And he makes another wonderful and wise observation that Ben really should have seen beforehand, but Andy sees it, saying that imagine how many charities they could have fund if they didn't have this morning tea /lunch/ all that other bullshit in there. You know what I'm saying? And then he comes back to the Andy that we all know and love, where he makes a fart observation that his pants are so tight that you couldn't smell the fart because his pants are just too tight. Gross. Anyhow, the guy who serves the tea / is working at Sweetums to give everybody their treats and bring in the food and everything is played by Morgan Peter Brown, and he's been in a bunch of stuff: American Crime Story, 911 Lone Star, SWAT, a lot of upcoming things. And lo and behold, he was wonderful and sent in a voice memo. Thank you so much for sending that in, Morgan. I'll go ahead and play that for you guys.
Hi, Holly and Maddie, and hi, listeners of the Park Pals podcast. I'm Morgan Peter Brown. I played the role of Charles, Ben Wyatt's assistant, lunch bringer, basic server of most kinds at the Sweetums Foundation in the season 5 episode Correspondents Lunch. It's always such a joy to talk about this show. I was a fan of Parks and Rec from the beginning, so booking a role on it was a dream come true as an actor. I booked the part through an audition with Dorian Frankel's office. There's not a lot of lines, so I remember the audition was sort of deceptively simple. It was very prop-centric, and so I find with stuff like that, it becomes about how specific you can make it, conveying small character beats through little gestures or actions. And of course, it's always somewhat about getting the look and the vibe of the show as well. I remember seeing a few actors in the waiting room who had styled themselves more like Hollywood-style assistants, like someone out of Entourage, and it was like, dude, that's not this show. But once I booked it, the experience on set was a dream. I was incredibly lucky to be directed by Nick Offerman, what I believe was his first episode he directed of the show. You guys will probably know better than I. He couldn't have been more generous and thoughtful, very clear with his communication on timing and camera setups. I felt so well taken care of, which you don't always get as a small role in shows. Nick and I also went to the same college theater department at University of Illinois, so that was incredible to discover. We knew many of the same places and people and such. Also, working with Adam Scott, Aziz Ansari, Chris Pratt, Aubrey Plaza was a blast and super educational to see how they worked with the writing and each other to craft each scene and help each other shine. It was a little intimidating at times, honestly. Everyone was so lovely, but the talent of that cast when they were all together would knock you back sometimes. Even though I only had a little to say in each scene, it was so much fun to just feel like a fly on the wall with a group of them. There's one deleted scene. I think you'll probably talk about that, which I'm pretty sure is where you learn my character's name is Charles. It was more props, more food, more of the same. I remember something about Tom loving brie and figs, if memory serves. Other stuff. I remember Chris's last line about farting 5 minutes ago and only smelling it now because his pants were so tight. That was something he had 3 or 4 different versions of. I think the writers were there offering alts like they would do. And it was really hard to not blow the take with laughing when he started mixing it up like that. You never knew it was coming. I really didn't want to screw up a take. because he was just delivering gold every time. And I was just like, like really trying not to die. But it was obvious everyone had such affection for each other as well. This episode, we filmed, I believe our first day was their first day back from holiday hiatus. So, and Amy Poehler who I didn't get the chance to work with, but I believe she had just hosted the Golden Globes with Tina Fey, I think for the first time. I could be wrong about that. But that happened the night before we started filming. And so everybody on set was abuzz with how great she had done, how happy they were for her. It was just so obvious that the chemistry among the cast and crew was so prevalent. And of course, everyone was so happy for Nick directing his first episode, so there was a real camaraderie there to make it great for him. I remember he showed me that wooden relief of his face, which they say is like the Hawaiian god of anger at the start of the episode. He was very excited and very proud about it. So I remember him showing that to me on the phone. He's like, "Get a load of this." It was so funny. It was being directed by Nick is also, again, so gracious and lovely, but was an adjustment because, as we all know now, Nick Offerman and Ron Swanson are very similar. like Ron and Nick sounds like Ron when you're talking to him. And even though he didn't look like, he still had his holiday beard and a few other things like that. It was a little, as again, a fan of the show, it was a little jarring to be directed as an actor by Ron Swanson. It took a minute to adjust. Again, it was a little intimidating, but in the sweetest, most wonderful way. But again, the camaraderie amongst everybody was really, really palpable and lovely. I watched the episode again to refresh before recording this, so I'd forgotten about those nude portraits on the walls. They were absolutely just as frightening in person, if not more so. I also remember that set was built on some stages that were right near Nick's woodshop. So that was a constant source of conversation as well. I want to say they were literally half a mile away. I've been fortunate to be a part of a lot of great shows in my career, but this is one of the ones where I truly pinch myself that I got to be a tiny part of this legacy. I still hear from friends regularly who are watching or rewatching it today saying is that you pushing a cart with oysters and fondue and stuff? And it's yep, that's me. But the fact that they made me feel like such a part of the team for my time there, even though it was, I think, just, 2 lines, I would have done anything for them. They were so gracious. Of course, I'd hope they'd bring me back for more episodes. But sadly, Ben made the wise decision to make some cutbacks in the lunch department of the Sweetums Foundation. Couldn't blame him for that, I guess. But thank you so much for having me, Holly and Maddie, and to all the listeners and the folks who keep the love for this amazing show still going strong. You can find me as Morgan Peter Brown on most socials. I actually play a supporting role in the fantastic comedy One of Them Days with Keke Palmer and SZA, which is out right now in theaters. And if anyone is a fan of Dungeons and Dragons or other tabletop role-playing games, I'm part of a fantastic show called The Dungeon Run, and we've been going strong, telling original, terrific fantasy stories together for over 5 years now. You can find us on Twitch, YouTube, or on other podcasts. But yeah, thanks so much again. This is a joy, and I could revisit this show all day long. Take care. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
That was so lovely. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Morgan. Oh my gosh. I wrote notes, as I always do, because lately I haven't been listening to the voice memos before I play them because I find it so much fun, so much more fun to, be taken by surprise at how wonderful these are. Love it. First of all, I have to say you have a great voice. I hope that you're doing voiceover and all the fun things because you have a wonderful voice. I would read audiobooks or listen to Calm, that app, Calm, Calm, to go to sleep. That's great. So, just letting you know that. And then awesome to know the vibe was really lovely and that there was so much just fun camaraderie around. I mean, I hear that from many people, but I also love knowing that you knew what the vibe was at your audition. That's really such a gift, I feel, if you're a fan of the show and you kind of know what the energy is going into it. However, by this point, it is... we're in season 5, so I feel like the actors should have known by this point that, it's not an Entourage vibe. But, hey, works out for you, and I'm glad that you knew what to do. Awesome to know about Nick, too, that not only was it, his first time directing. Yes, you were correct on that. But also that you guys went to the same college and could kind of bond over similar energies and places that you've been and people that you might have known or teachers or whatever. That's so awesome. So cool. And yeah, I did see that deleted scene that you mentioned. And yes, it is the first time I think we learned that your name is Charles, which is great. And it's really, it's just more of the same you did have more lines. So I'm sorry that got cut, but I'm so glad that you got to actually be in the episode. However, yes, I think you had some lines, like I said, more of the same with Tom, as Aziz, just, offering him stuff and he's like taking things off the little cart and all that stuff. So cool that you got to see / like, I know you said you didn't work with her, but that you got to hear the vibes that / like the, atmosphere around her Amy Poehler coming back from the Golden Globes. I still think that Amy and Tina are the best people to host that show. It's so good. It was so good. So hopefully they can do that again one day. But yeah, I love that so much. Oh my gosh, yes, I just talked about the portraits earlier on in the episode because we had interviewed Nick Newport, the guy who played Nick Newport, and he talked about the portraits and how, that basically does look like him. Like I said, they did makeup and whatnot on him to make him look older, but what a way to be, encapsulated in a show. And then, yes, oh my gosh, I have seen the ads and the TikToks and all the things for One of Them Days. So I need to go watch that. Love that cast. So I would love to see you in that and them in that. And yeah, love that. The dungeon run. That sounds like such a cool idea and such a cool fantasy moment. I have never played Dungeons & Dragon, but I think I'd like it because I'm an actor, but also you don't have to be an actor. I just love fantasy in general. I feel like I'd get nervous about not doing it right because, I'm one of those people, but I think I would just need, to play once or twice and see how it goes. So I'm very proud of you for doing that. And yes, I will tag you so that people can find you on Instagram. That was a really, really cool voice memo to hear about all that behind the scenes stuff and also about Nick's, workshop being so close and all these things. So that's really awesome. Thank you so much for that. Love it. Thank you, Morgan. Okay. Make sure everybody follows him. All right, moving on. We are getting into it. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so now we are going through the emails back at the office to see things that the Pawnee Sun could use that they have hacked. That they could use against her in the press conference. Leslie has an email about the top 10 butt moment. They also have, Ben and Leslie have Lord of the Rings fantasy names. I love after each one of like, I'm not ashamed of that. Like, I'm good for that. I love that very much. But Leslie is panicking still because she keeps getting emails. It won't stop. She keeps getting emails. So there's no way for her to stop this Pawnee Sun from getting them. Especially if, like, no authority can come in and stop the emails or find out who's doing this. And Donna has a wonderful idea, which I don't know why we didn't think of this earlier, but it was fun to see all the things that were in, Leslie's email. Donna has this idea because she has had all of her boyfriends try to hack her in her email and phone and all these things. So she orders everyone out. And I love that Donna saves the day. She really does. She comes through and she's perfect in every way. So good to see that. So now we're at the next part of Anne running into Chris again in the hall. And Chris says that she has been trying to call her and she never called back, which, I could understand that. Anna's like probably mortified, or at least I would be. And Chris says he's honored to be asked, but he has to think about it. And he's being very mature about it, which is great. He just needs time. And I still hate that they didn't have like an actual conversation about it. It was right there in front of us. It just could have happened so much nicer. And like throw in some awkward moments. Of course. Throw in that awkwardness. Of course it's awkward. You know what I'm saying? But like, yeah. All right. Okay. So now we're at Sweetums. And Jessica is very insulting to rural people. And she's like just calling them names. Gross. And Ben says, going back to my rural roots, Ben says that he's canceling all the fancy things. He's not going to have lunches anymore. He's not going to have tea. He's not going to have these fancy things happening. So hopefully Charles got to keep his job because after he canceled that, I don't know anymore. Or maybe Charles got to have another job. I don't know. Another position. He can move laterally throughout the company, right? Anyway, so now we are at the press conference, and Leslie tells everyone to check under their chairs. I love that. Is it chocolate? Even better, it's dirt. She says the EPA has passed the dirt as acceptable, and Kim Turlando comes in here, because she is at the press conference, and says, well, guess what? They found midichlorians. How serious is that? Like, I have sources that say that that's in the dirt. What's the deal? Trying to have a gotcha moment. And that was the trap that they laid to prove Kim has hacked into her email. And I love that Leslie has a little gasp where she's like, oh, and no one gets it. Because midichlorians is in the blood of Jedi Knights. And I love Donna saying, I sent that email as a trap into which you have fallen. I love that reading / way that she says that. It's so good. Kim tries to play it off as she was cool and didn't know Star Wars because she had sex in high school. Blah, 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 blah. But she's been caught red-handed. So that's it. And she's done for. And Donna says what we're all thinking, really, and says, get to stepping. Yeah. Okay, moving on. So Leslie tries to make more jokes. She tries to kind of walk back her Pawnee correspondence lunch moment, but it just doesn't really work. It doesn't land, unfortunately. You know what I mean? But I'm so glad that they caught her and that Kim Turlando had to walk out and be embarrassed, okay? Because that was really annoying and all of her jokes were really good. And she did say that. I don't know if people were listening by that point, but she did say, like, Kim stole all my jokes, so everything she said, I wrote those. All right, so now we're at the tag. Short episode, kind of, guys. Wow. Was I talking fast? But also, well, I do talk fast, but also this was a pretty straightforward episode. There weren't as many guest stars, so I didn't have as many voice memos. There were a lot of guest stars, but we've talked most of them, and they're not, like, new to the show, so that was wonderful to bring back. But also, we've really just got this A and B story, so there's nothing, like, super mega crazy happening. Obviously, there's that little C story of Anne being awkward with Chris, but you know that I don't want to talk about it, so that's that. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, not really, but it is true that it's a smaller side, and we've also already talked about it. All right, sorry. Moving on. The tag is Ben asking Andy to be a part-time assistant at the Charity Foundation. Andy doesn't get that he's asking him. Oh, Andy. Because he's like, I think I know someone. I have an idea. He's in this courtyard. And Andy's like, is it that guy right there? No, it's you. I think you might have a knack for, picking charitable donations or, charitable giving kind of vibes. And we love this because Andy does kind of thrive in that environment. And I think working with Ben will be really good for him, something to move on from. But when he finally has it spelled out, when Ben finally says, like, no, it's you. Will you do it? And I just love this. Andy squeezes Ben. It's very precious. He gets up and hugs him really tight. I love it so much. So darling. So we'll see what's in store for our next episode with that. But that's it, guys. That's all I got for you. Hopefully Maddie can join us for the next one. And please rate and review and subscribe and all the things. Share this with your friends. Share this with your park friends. And, follow us on Instagram. Do all the things. If you have any questions or you want us to look up anything, please let us know. And also I was going to say, too, there's a couple people that are also... involved in St. Dennis Medical on NBC, and it's really fun. So I would highly recommend that. It's also a lot of The Office crossover too, because the people who created it also created Superstore, but they started on The Office, and now St. Dennis Medical. It has that same mockumentary feel, and it's very funny. And a lot of the same cast from Superstore as well. So check that out. That's just a random side note, but thank you so much for listening. We appreciate everything. Thank you for your energy. I hope that your 2025 is, as good as it can be. Hang in there. We love you, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye, guys.
There's a park and some pals, and there's also therapy too.